How's everybody doing today? So listen, we've been doing these pretty much every week, and it's been a ton of fun just kind of talking about video editing, taking questions from the chat, sort of dealing with some of the issues with some of the software that we've all been using. So we're going to be here for about an hour today. If you have any questions specifically about video editing, you know, things that we can answer quickly, not how do I turn myself into the Incredible Hulk? That would take longer than that allotted time slot. But if you had any issues with things like Filmora or with Movavi, or if you're just trying to figure out some video editing techniques that have been stumbling blocks for you, shout them all out, because that's what we're here for. Okay. Are we going to use Filmora X? I've been using Filmora X as an example. But I say X, I call it X. X really means 10. But yeah, that's the one I'll probably be using today. And it's, again, we're going to be talking about technique here. I think a lot of the things that hold creators back is we get into these situations where creators just want to learn that one thing, and they just ask for that one thing, and they sort of miss some of the fundamentals. And the fundamentals to me are really what make everything else tick. So it's super important. Hey Doug, how you doing, pal? Super important to learn all of the video editing fundamentals. Good morning and happy Father's Day from Cooper Music Page. Daniel, ready for some great tips and tricks as always. Hey, thanks for the happy Father's Day. I am a father. Happy Father's Day to every father out there. I'm looking forward to taking my motorcycle out today with my girl on the back, and it's supposed to be in the 80s. I think it's going to be a good day. But we're going to talk some editing first, right? Let's see. I could see Iggy is driving and listening. Just don't look at the screen, Iggy. Just listen. Just listen along. And you're all good. You're good to go. Super Dave USA. Good morning, Daniel Batal. Good morning, Super Dave USA. It's good to see you, my friend. So, let me see this. Eric Waite Whiskey Studios. Daniel Batal car wheel scene. How do you edit VFX? Someone asked me that question. They went like car wheel VFX, and I went wheel spin. They said wheel spin. Eric asked me, comment was like wheel spin, how to edit in VFX. And I went, well, I'm not sure I understand your question. Could you rephrase that so I can understand? And they replied, wheel spin. Like, well, I don't know if that made it any clearer. What's going on, Funko Illuminati? And what is happening? Bypass Noipain. Neo. Hi. I'm really horrible at pronunciation. I'm sorry. Let's see. How can we make more than 2 clowns? That's super easy. I just invite one of my friends like Dean Inman onto the live stream, and then you've got at least 2 clowns right there. See, simple. All the answers are right there. love forever, India. Love to all of you folks over there. Hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Skippy, good to see you. So listen. What I want to talk about today is sort of some of the things that have been stymieing creators out there. I see a lot of times that it seems like people will get caught up trying to do several things at once and not be able to find answers quickly as to what it is they're trying to do. And they'll always say to me, like, Daniel, you know, how can I get this effect to happen, or how can I make this technique, or how can I pull this off in something as simple as Filmora? And what happens is I usually start investigating the root source of what they're asking me and seeing if it can be done. But I think 90% of the time, what I find is that whenever I go to create something, I'm going right back to all those simple fundamentals that I learned early on, and then applying them to create this thing that seems a lot trickier, you know, like a heavier effect that you go, wow, what button do I push to create that? And it's not, it's really learning how to layer those basic principles together. It's almost like if someone came in and said, teach me algebra. Well, I need to solve this algebra problem. you kind of are, you have to start with understanding basic, addition, multiplication, division. If you don't have that skill set, even if I show you how to answer one algebra question, which I have a little bit of training here because my son is he's in high school and I've had to do this. The other stuff won't make sense. The old adage about, give a man a fish and he can eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he can eat for a lifetime. And that's really what it's about. If I just show you one quick trick, you're like, okay, I can do that now. But then how do I do this? And if you don't have all those skills that build up to that, then you'll always be searching for answers. And my goal has always been teaching you things so that you can find the answers yourselves. A lot of people will say to me, like, Daniel, how did you come up with that technique? How did you figure out how to do that? Where did you learn that? And I didn't learn anything but the basics, and I just thought about how to apply them. And that's really the big difference between making something happen and getting, hitting walls and stumbling blocks. Mike, how you doing, pal? Good to see you. Is Doug, as always, it's good to have you in here, my friend, Mr. Paul Peck, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Paul Peck. So, let me start here. A lot of people have been asking me, like, are you going to be doing more Filmora tutorials? And I sort of moved away from them because I'd done so many that, like I said, the questions became redundant. They were like, how do I remove the background in my video without green screen? Yeah, I get asked that 1,000 times a week, and I have to keep saying the same thing. Well, Filmora 10 doesn't have rotoscoping, so you can't do it easily. And then the next day I'll get it all over again. So it got to the point where no new questions were coming in. Or the questions that came in were beyond the scope of Filmora, things that you could really do, or things that I had already covered, where I just kept pointing back to a different video saying, I covered that in this tutorial. So I've really been sort of reapproaching the way I do things and trying to think about how to really help people make better content and grow their YouTube channels. And if I find something that's fun, that I think is something you haven't seen, then I'll pursue it in one of the video editing softwares that I'm using. Can you please tell me how to easily add my video in Music Filmora using Fast Work? How to add? Let me read this again. Can you please tell me how to easily add on my video in Music Filmora? So you're asking how to add music to your video? Is that the question you're asking, Bubla? The easiest way to add anything in Filmora would be just to take the software. You have all these tracks, right? Anything you bring into your import window, this is where all of your videos and, you bring all your videos and audio in. I can use a piece of sample video here. If you have a sample video, you just drag it down into your timeline so that you have some video. And then underneath that is your audio tracks. It defaults Filmora 10. Let me make this bigger so you can see it, and let me kill the scroll doesn't hurt us. In Filmora 10, basically you start with one audio track down below here and one video track up above. Now you can right click and you can add video tracks and audio tracks, or you can use in the upper left here, you'll see this little double box. You can open up the track manager, and then you can assign how many, if you want to add multiple tracks, you could say, I want to add 5 video tracks above or below track 1. If there were more tracks, you might want to sneak one in between track 2 and 3. This is where you do it. And it also allows you to add audio tracks at the same time. If you didn't want to add any audio tracks, you just put that to 0 and none would be added. But if you wanted to add 5 above track 1, you click there, and now I have 5 tracks of video added above. But if you wanted to add audio, all you have to do is find an audio track anywhere you have audio. Let me import some. Actually, I think there's some sample audio. So you would import your audio track, or find the audio you want to use and bring it down below your footage, and that's how you're adding music, just like that. And when you click on that audio track, double left click in your timeline on any element in the upper left opens up the higher tier functionality for that element down in your timeline. So if you double left clicked on the audio track, now you see the ability to raise and lower the volume, pan it left and right here up in the upper left. You can put a fade in on it. You can put a fade out on it. You can change the pitch of it. You can change the equalizer settings, customize and equalize. They have some denoising, some ducking. They have a new auto normalization feature too that brings it all up to. Did you notice that? Let me unclick it. Every time I click it, it changes it. If it's a little too loud, it just sort of balances the normalization out. So that's basically it. I think if I'm answering the question or reading your question properly, then that's how you do it. Just add those elements in. Are people really asking about cracked software? You know, that is another thing I get a lot too. It's one of the reasons I stopped doing a lot of Filmora tutorials, because I'd get probably 200 times a day. How can I don't download Filmora for free? I don't want to pay for a license. You know, it got into there's a lot of crowd out there that I'm constantly sitting there trying to tell people that's stealing. That's stealing. If you steal my content from my channel, just this morning, I gave 2 people copyright strikes for stealing content from my channel and uploading it to their own. They just downloaded it and uploaded it to their own, and YouTube's very good at finding and letting me know and going, hey, someone stole your video. And I gave them copyright strikes because it's stealing. Don't steal content. Don't steal software. If you can't afford software, then go find something that's an alternative to use for free. So something like Affinity, if you can't afford it was $25, $24.99 recently. If you can't afford a lifetime license for $24.99, then look at an alternative like GIMP, which is completely free and is a photo editing software. If you can't afford the license for Filmora, then go download DaVinci Resolve, which has more features than Filmora, and their free version is completely free without a watermark. Filmora has a thing where they let you try the software. It's fully functional, but when you export it, they put a watermark on it if you're just using the trial version. It's just to see if you like it before you buy it. And then if you like it, you go, yeah, it seems pretty good. I like the flow. I'll buy this license. That removes the watermark. So it's one of those things you really want to think about. The one thing I really want to warn you about, cracked software, when you're finding cracked software, really, really high probability there's going to be Trojans and malware in it. And you could literally lose your whole bank account. You can have your computer shut down, lose all of your ID. People can get into all of your other, if you guys are gamers, you want to see your whole Fortnite account or Epic Games get totally stolen. Use cracked software and it'll do it every time. Because that's most of the reason people are circulating cracked software, is because people go, oh, I don't have to pay. And then they line it with all kinds of spyware, malware, Trojans. And then they go, oh, suddenly my computer's not working right, or someone hacked my ID. Yeah, and I've lost all my access to my accounts. Someone stole my YouTube channel. Yeah, imagine that. Sometimes karma is a real beast. So please buy licensed versions of software and use real licenses. Go to the trusted website, Filmora. If you're going to use Filmora, download specifically from the filmora.wondershare.com or .net site. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to read some questions here. What makes a difference if we put tracks above or below? Ibrahim, not specifically anything. It's just where you'd want to put them for a sense of. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say you had above or below. The only difference would be. Let me give you a better example here so it makes sense. Let's say I had a bunch of stuff that I had brought down into my timeline, right? So I've got all these different tracks of things, if I can function properly here, right? And you have a lot of tracks, and I want to be able to add a track above track 1 because I want to be able to see it. Like maybe I'm working on this track, and I don't want to add another track way up here where I have to keep scrolling in my timeline to see this thing I'm adding, because maybe I'm having 2 tracks interact. So I could go, oh, I know I want to add it. I want to add it somewhere in here. I want to add a track between track 1 and 2. So Filmora just gives you the options of above or below based on, just your perspective. A situation where I would go, usually I'd go like above track 1. I want to add 1 track here. I'll put a 0. That will now stuff a track right in above track 1, right? But let's say I have all these tracks in here and I'm like, but wait a minute, I want a new main track. I've got a piece. I put these pieces in, but this isn't actually the main track, number 1. I actually have a different piece I want to be the main track. That's when I would go to the track manager and say, I want to add 1 track below track 1 and no audio tracks. Enter it, right? And now there's a track number 1, my main track, which is usually centered, would now be available, and I've moved all the other ones up. So there's no specific reason why you would use one or the other. It just, Filmora gives you the options to place things wherever you want to, above, below, and especially with the audio tracks. Like sometimes when you add audio tracks, they keep getting lower and lower, and you might have done all the like vocal stuff, and now you want to put in the music bed. You're all done mixing the vocals, and you want that music right up under your main track, so you might put it above track 1 of the audio, because there's the audio. Basically, Filmora goes video tracks upwards, audio tracks downwards. So it's just where you want to place it. Let's see. Is that Scully? Is Scully there? Hey, Scully, good to see you, pal. Can Filmora export in 5K or 8K? No, it currently cannot. Filmora currently can only export up to 4K. It is full 4K though. When you go to the settings tab here and you go down to the resolution, you'll see it goes all the way up to 4096 by 2160. It doesn't even, you can't even technically edit content inside of Filmora with 8K. It'll read it, but it gets compressed down, so it's a little bit different. There's some oddities in Filmora. For instance, you can't export. Someone had a big fight with me the other day. They were yelling at me like, Filmora can export in 120 frames per second. And I'm like, okay, well, here's the export. And it says the highest frames it'll allow you is 60. So they kept yelling at me, telling me that I was wrong, but maybe they have a different Filmora than I do. But Filmora, one of the neat things about Filmora is like if you're doing slow motion stuff, you can actually bring in like footage that's shot at 120 frames per second. Filmora will read it, but what it won't do is you can't set your project for 120, or they may have changed that part, but you can't export in it. But you can't export in 120. But what you can do is take something that was filmed at like 120 frames per second, slow it down by half, right? So you take the speed and duration, slow it down by half, and now it will be technically at 60 frames per second because you slowed it down in half, and it'll have information for every piece of that frame because it doesn't lose that 120 frame per second information. It just can't export it at 120. And I've tried this a few times where we've taken 120 footage, stretched it out to half speed, and gone frame by frame at 60 frames per second. And sure enough, there's motion in every frame. So there's little things like that that are quirky about Filmora, but are kind of fun too. I take 5K with the GoPro with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, so I wish they can able to export it soon. Maybe you can import it. You could work with that footage. It just won't give you the full export. And to be honest with you, I've always said this, use the right tool for the job at hand. If you are someone who really needs 8K exports, maybe you work commercial, right? Maybe you're doing commercial work for clients, then Filmora is not your gig because it's not going to give 8K. Personally, I rarely use anything that high. I'm a YouTube content creator. 8K means nothing to me. You know, sometimes people get on tangents where they're like, I'm future-proofing my content, and I'm like, how long do you expect your content to be around? Most people who are future-proofing are still struggling to get views. So, most people, the vast majority of people who are watching YouTube content, right here on a phone. So 8K, cool in theory. 5K, cool in theory. Does it really matter where most people are watching? Depends on the content. If you're thinking of your YouTube content creator, probably not. If you're doing commercial work for somebody, probably so. But look into things like DaVinci Resolve. I would switch over to something that can handle a higher resolution footage. Hello, how you doing, Sanchitha? Did I say that right? I hope so. Let's see, questions. Hey, Daniel, what's your favorite number of the alphabet? What? I don't even know what that means. I give. Daniel, how many days did it take you to master editing? I haven't mastered editing. So I will let you know if I ever get to the point where if I ever get to the point where I think I have mastered editing, it's time for me to quit because we all are continuing to learn. All right. Everything we do should be a learning process. I'm better today than I was last month, and I'm hoping next month I will be better than I am today. There's stuff I'm working on right now that I go, that was great. That was something I probably couldn't have done before. But I'm learning. I'm always learning. Hi, you use Premiere Pro. Yeah, I heard you the first time. You don't have to keep putting it in there. That's cool. Premiere Pro is actually spelled with an E at the end. This notice has come from your friendly grammar Nazi. Yeah, Premiere Pro is great. Adobe has great product. It's a steeper learning curve and it requires a stronger system to run it, but it's fantastic. I love it very much. It also takes up a lot of system resources, and that's one of the hardest things. It takes a lot of time to learn it and uses a lot of the system resources, and I like to move quickly. So my favorite thing is just something simple. That's why I tend to I tend to lean on things like Filmora, or I use Movavi. Those are two of my favorites. So what is Doug? Oh, he's using Final Cut Pro. Yeah, so Doug is a Mac guy. I just ordered. So here's one thing. I just ordered. It's supposed to come either today or tomorrow. I ordered one of the Mac Mini 16 gigabyte M1s, which is Apple's new CPU mini computer. It's their new technology with the M1 chip because now Filmora runs natively on the M1. And I really wanted to know, lately the graphics cards are so expensive that it's impossible to get PCs or build PCs and get your hands on the parts at any reasonable price. A decent graphics card is going to cost you more than an Apple M1 mini. Mac Mini would cost you. So I'm like, all right. And a lot of people ask me, hey, how do you do these certain things? What about in Mac? So I haven't really used Mac. I have an iPad Pro and I have an iPhone 12, but I don't use a lot of Mac computer systems to try, like desktop software. So that'll change. I'll be able to start bringing some of those up and make recommendations because I wanted to know, people ask me like, how can I get an affordable computer that will run Filmora without crashing? So I'm trying different things. I've been pushing people towards certain laptops that seem to handle it pretty well, that are affordable. And I want to be able to see if Mac can handle it, which I think it can. I just want to know firsthand. I'll recommend Mac and I'll be able to show you live how well Filmora operates when you're on Mac versus PC, which might be different because right now the Mac Minis, I got the 16 gigabyte one that's of RAM. That's the biggest one they have, but it's got a really fast CPU. And I think with about 12 gigabyte of storage internally, it was like $1,100, but they started about $700 with the smaller one. So, I'll make some recommendations. Let me see. Let me just read this question. Daniel, I have a question. How to do mask like Adobe Premiere or impossible? So you can't mask. So like things like Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, they have a intelligent masking tool or rotoscoping tool. Filmora 10 doesn't have that. And I think that puts people in situations where they want to use that feature and they don't. And in that case, I would tell you that Filmora is the wrong tool for you. You want to find something. If you need to constantly mask footage where something is moving in that footage and you need to mask everything out of the background, then you probably want to make sure that you're using something that has that feature. So make sure you're getting the right tool for the job. I know Filmora is easy to use and it's really cost effective, but if it's not the right tool, then use something else. Hey everyone. Hey Mick, how you doing, pal? Good to see you. This is COD Jeswin, or COD Jeswin. I'm going to say cash on delivery. Hi, Daniel from India. Big fan of you. Hey, thanks. I'm a big fan of India. I appreciate you being here. So one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is how to do higher end techniques with some of the simpler softwares. And I've done a lot of it. And if you want, actually, I can show you the new thing I'm working on. If anyone's interested in seeing the new thing I'm working on, give me a hashtag yes in the chat and I can give you a preview of this newest thing I'm working on. Please, can you tell me how can we get better music for vlogs? Because many music get copyright issues and free music I don't like. Any suggestions? Yeah, I would say if you want to get free music, what I would do is go for vlogs like on YouTube. If you're hosting it on YouTube, I would go into the YouTube audio library, which is right inside of YouTube Studio. That's the best place to find free music. I've got excellent music that I think you'll like. We got Cooper says yes always. Let's see. We've got a Super Dave says hashtag yes. We only got a few yeses. I guess people don't want to see what I'm working on. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Happy Father's Day. Thank you I am a dad. And if you're a dad as well, Insane McLean, happy Father's Day to you, pal. One of the things that you want to think about for music is there's only going to be so much free music out there. And like I said, if you find something that's worth paying for, then pay for it. Epidemic Sound is fantastic. So it's one of those things that if you really need great music, I write my own music, but if you need great music, then go find it. And if it's gonna cost you a little money, then pay a little money and make it work. All right, we got enough yeses. All right, I guess that okay. So here's an example of something. People ask me all the time, Daniel, how do you get like this crazy effect to happen in Filmora. One of the ones I always get, I've lost count of how many times people have said, hey, can you do like a superhero landing effect, like Superman coming down to the ground? And I've lost count of how many people I've seen make that video on YouTube, right? I mean, they've made it in Adobe, they made it in DaVinci. It's like 1,000 people have made it, and the same technique applies. It's like, it's not about the software, it's about the technique. I mean, there are some features that, like Filmora doesn't have, but a lot of people ask me to do that. I'm like, the technique is there, you can learn it simply. But I also get a lot of people, I realize, when I tell them certain things, they say, well, I'm using Filmora and I'm only filming on my phone. So I decided to do something different. I put a challenge up to myself and I said, I wonder if I can do a really great superhero flying effect using nothing more than my filming with my phone and using Filmora 10 to edit. And I said, if I can do that, if I can make it look like I'm really flying, then maybe I've done something right. So you guys tell me, all right? You guys tell me what you think of this, all right? Let's go here. Let's go here. Give me a minute, would you? This is not easy. What do you think? What do you think? That looked like I was flying? I did that literally. I filmed that with my iPhone. I had my channel manager out with me. She was just, I told her these are the motions we need. We set up the entire shot. And I did that all. I used a little bit of photo editing software to create some of the overlays that I needed. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Did it come by too quick? They go pretty quick. Hold on a second. I'll show you one more time in case you missed it. Let me see here. Give me a minute, would you? This is not easy. Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I liked it. I looked at it and I went, okay, that feels pretty good to me. So those are a lot of the times behind the scenes, I'm constantly trying different things to see, can I pull this off? Can I make this happen? Can I talk to someone who has a phone and Filmora 10 and go, you can do this. You just have to think it through. So I'm probably, haven't been making any real, like Filmora heavy content, but I did reach out to Filmora and I can do this on any software. I just wanted to see if I could do it on a simple software. So if they're interested in sponsoring this one, maybe we'll put that one out. But yeah, it was really thinking about setting up the shot more than anything. I spent a lot more time sitting there. Like, we shot quite a bit of footage. All of the footage was actually shot in a half hour. We went out to a local park, basketball courts in the park, and kind of set everything up and thought about it first, how we were going to do it, and then just got all the shots and brought it back in, and I played around with what I had in my head for what might work. And a lot of it was just things like making sure the camera work was correct, moving up and through the sky. Simple things like that are usually where people get thrown off the course, because they think, oh, I need to find that one, I need to have rotoscoping. If I can't mask intelligently, I can't. I did all this in Filmora 10. It was pretty simple. It looks pretty realistic. It looks like I actually took off flying. So those kind of things, I think, are where I'm always trying to get people think outside of the box, right? Think outside of the box, because it's usually trickier than you think. Let's see. Samuel, I guarantee you don't know how I did that. Guarantee you don't know how I did that, because it used more than one software. I had to use some photo editing software to help me out in there. So you might know pieces of it. And maybe, maybe you've got me sussed out that quickly, but when you see what I actually did, I think there's probably a dozen tracks in there to make it happen. And that's what really pulled it together. Let's see. What FPS play a role in editing? That's a great question. That footage I just showed you, I filmed it 4K. I filmed in 4K at 24 frames per second because I knew I wanted to have a little less detail in some of the motion. And frames per second is tricky. A simple way to understand how, what it is it's just how many frames per second are actually going by. If you use more frames per second, what happens if you get up into 60 or 120, you're going to get a lot of detail, which means like all of the little details are going to be very crisp. because you lose things like motion blur. Your eye creates a motion blur because there's fewer frames and things are moving farther per frame than they would with something that had more frames per second, which would have a lot of tinier incremental motions in each different frame. More frames per second mean there's, say if it was 60, there'd be 60 frames, and in each frame, if a person was running, they'd move a tiny little bit in each frame, and that gives you all that detail. Frames per second play a lot of role when you're trying to do real slow motion stuff, because you want to, whenever you slow something down, if you film it at 30 frames per second and you try to slow it down to half speed, it'll get super choppy, right? Because your eye starts picking up that this starts feeling less smooth because you can actually see the frame chunks going by subconsciously. So like when you're doing slow motion footage, you want to start, I say typically no less than 120 frames per second, so that if you chop it down to half or a quarter speed, like a quarter of 120 frames per second, divide by 4 would be 30 frames per second. So if you slowed it down to 25%, it would still be moving at 25 frames per second, and that's still a pretty solid frame rate that your eye still takes that in as looking smooth, right? So those are the kind of things you want to think about frame rate. If you're going to do super slow motion things that things like exploding really slow, then you want to get up into like 240 frames per second filming, because then you could take that down to 10% of its normal speed, right? 1/10 of the speed, and 1/10 of 240 frames per second still gives you 24 frames per second. So 240 down to 10% of that 24. So you can really slow it down and it still looks smooth. That's when you'll see, those real slow explosion type shots and really detailed, super slow stuff. That's when you want to go to film at a higher frame rate. So when you slow it down, it looks cleaner. Also, when you're filming at a higher frame rate for slow-mo stuff, make sure you use a fast shutter speed too, because if your shutter speed is too slow, you'll get motion blur. And when you slow it down, you'll see the motion blur. So you want to make sure that not only you filming at a high frame rate, but that your shutter speed is very fast. So it's just grabbing that quick picture and not allowing, the longer that aperture stays open, the motion in there blurs on the image. You kind of know this. If you take your camera and whip it really quickly while you're filming, everything blurs. So that's where that is important. Let's see. Can we make a marketing video? Sure you can. Absolutely. You can make any kind of video you want. And it's just, listen, I make the vast majority of content I make is either on Movavi or Filmora. Some is on Filmora Pro, but it's only when I need certain features or, every now and then. But yeah, you can make anything you want pretty much. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how, see it in your head first. The biggest thing that people get confused on is if you can see in your head what you're trying to make, then you know how to make it. If you say, yeah, I want to film, because you have to know what you're filming, how to film it, how to get the shot right, how to set up your lighting right. You have to know everything you're going to be editing before you edit. If you just film stuff and bring it in and go, let's see what happens, you're going to be in big trouble. It's sort of like going to the grocery store and buying random ingredients and going home and say, I'm going to try to cook something. You go, I'm going to make a cake. What do you got? I got carrots. I got corn. I have peas. I have shrimp. It's like, well, how are you going to make a cake out of that? Knowing what you need when you get out there and you actually create your shots is all of it. That way the final product will come out the way you want. So really thinking it through beforehand is super important. How can I do this flying effect in Filmora 9? You could. Everything I used to make that flying effect was not, well, yeah, you could, except for the scene in the air. I used some keyframing for the scene in the air, but you could do that manually if you wanted. My question is why are you using Filmora 9? Filmora 10 has slightly higher resource requirements, but if you've got an active license for Filmora 9, it applies to Filmora X, Filmora 10. So download the latest version. It's got more features and it's got more functionality. So when you do need them, they're there. I would absolutely get the latest version, just because it's better. They put more stuff in it. Let's see. Why does Filmora render preview take so long to complete? It's a good question. What it comes down to is your number one, your system. Okay. So depending on what your system specs are. Now my system, I've got, I run a Ryzen 9 CPU. I've got a Ryzen Radeon RX 6800 XT graphics card. It's a very high-end graphics card. I've got 2 terabytes of storage, SSD storage. I've got 64 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm running stuff that allows it to run smoother. So renders are faster for me than they would be for someone who has an older, slower computer. So those things relate. Number one, your system is the majority of it. But the next most important thing after that is figure out what you're rendering, right? Like let's look at this one. I just put a bunch of sample clips in here. So if I render this, it won't take, see how quickly that rendered? Super fast. But if you right click on any of these and look at the properties of these elements, they're small, right? This is like small stuff. There's nothing big. This one's only, 4,600 kilobytes, small files. So when you use big files, that's when things get hot. That's when things slow down. Like for example, so you saw how fast that just rendered, right? Let's see if we can find, okay, here's a footage, this is from Production Crate, and it is a gas explosion. Now this is a ProRes file, which is the highest quality of files you can get there. Look at the size of this file. It is, where do I put it? Right? Oh yeah, it's over 2 gigabytes for this one effect. It's a huge file. It is a huge VFX file. Look at the size of that. Now, if I hit render on this with that massive file in there, even my fast computer, look at, you can still see it processing as it comes down into the timeline. See how it's shifting there? Filmora is still bringing it in and trying to understand what to do with it. And I don't know how I have my projects. Let me just check my settings. If I have see if I have proxy files on under preferences and performance. I do. I'm automatically. This is where you set your proxy files, and it takes anything down that's over 1080p. So, but it's still a huge file, and I bet you if I hit render now let's see the speed of this render. Look at how much slower this is. Do you see how slowly that's going? And I just added one more file. You're like, well, why is that so slow? Well, it's over 2 gigabytes of information. I've done edits where the whole edit was less than 2 gigabytes of information. So this is going to take, a couple of minutes for me to process this gas explosion so that it looks, so that it works right. So that's the main thing. People forget, not all situations are created equal here, right? Like that is a really high-end gas explosion, lots of detail. Man, that's a ProRes file. You use that in a video, and it's the whole kit and caboodle right there, right? That is that's something that's got a ton of detail, a ton of information. So when you're building projects, I see this. I had someone ask this question in the comment section a couple of weeks ago. They're like, I don't understand. The minute I start adding 20 or 30 different tracks and I start putting a lot of effects on and I start using some of the different transitions, Filmora, for no reason, starts to lag out on me. And I kind of laughed. I went, well, that's the reason. That is the reason. You're asking, think of Filmora like a pickup truck, right? You've got a little pickup truck, okay? Now you go to the store and you pick up, a couple of 2x4s. That truck's going to run smooth. You drive right home, no problem. Now you go back to, the same store, Home Depot, and you pick up 100 bags of concrete. That truck is going to squash down. The suspension's going to be squealing. It's going to feel like a guided missile. The brakes are going to take forever to stop. It's going to be hard to turn. That's exactly what you're doing when you start putting a lot of tracks and effects and elements and using things in Filmora, large data files. You're asking Filmora to do a lot more than you are if you use smaller files and fewer requests. It's that simple. Understand you're asking a lot from somebody. So if you're saying, hey, I want this software to do a lot more, then you need to do things like get a better processor, get a better graphics card, put more RAM in your computer, get more hard drive space available. Make sure you're using solid state drives so that because a lot of times they're built, the Filmora is making proxy files and render files. Every time you hit that render file, it's making a render file to use. So that means it's storing that render file somewhere, and that's a piece of information. So it's eating up your hard drive too. So you want to make sure you have plenty of hard drive space. I usually recommend 100, 130 gigabytes or more of free space on your system. SSD is better. Internal is better, because if your computer doesn't have to keep pulling information from an external drive, if you can do it right within the system itself across the motherboard, that's going to be a faster data transference. That will pick up the speed. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll create a video, right? And I do it really simply. I think I've told people this before. If I was, let me see, I can show you right. I'll do it like right on my computer screen. If I were going to, let me make a file here. New folder. All right. Hold on a second. I got to pull it over here. Give me 1 second so I can share this. All right. Let me go here, and let me share the screen. All right. So this is just my computer screen. I've got a file up in this corner. Let me open it up. I'll create a folder for my project, and I'll name that folder, like if it was, flying like a superhero, I would name it that. And then in that folder, I'll make 3 other files, and I'll usually call one video. Then simple to make a file. You just right click inside of your folder, scroll down to new and create folder. And then I'll name one audio, if I can spell audio. And then I'll create another one, a third folder that says images. And then so now my main folder has been named the project, and I have 3 different folders inside, and all my video files go in there, and all my image files, my pictures that I use for that project go in here, and all my audio files go in that third folder. So I now have created a file system that I start with it on my computer. I'll usually put it right like somewhere, in a local drive, even on my desktop. I'll finish that project, and then when I'm done, I'll move all of that to an external drive where it's all saved. You can also do another thing that, what happened, because that way if I ever update Filmora, and for any reason it wipes out my files, they were all saved externally. That's one thing I tell anybody. Before you update, like Filmora is designed to update and upgrade to the newer version without overwriting your project files, but there's no guarantee it won't. And I work way too hard to have my projects wiped out. So everything is always backed up somewhere else. I don't leave it on my computer. I'll work with the project I'm on my computer, and the minute I'm done, I take all those files, I put them all in an external storage, and I wipe them off of my main computer. So I'm not junking up my computer with extra files, but they do run a little quicker when you have them internally native. The software runs a little smoother. Little tip there. But that's the other thing, is just make sure that you have it all set up somewhere. A nice, easy filing system makes it super easy to come back later on, like in your audio thing. If you had that all set up, you go like, oh, man, didn't I use a certain song on whatever video? You can go, let me go to the audio file of that project, and let me look in here, and that's where you would have all of the audio you've used, and anything used for sound is right there, and you can pull it right back up nice and easy. So I'm a big fan of doing that, like keeping it really super simple, so that all of your processes are easy to manage, easy to find, and backed up. Let's see. Overwhelmed. They have so much to learn. How are you? How you doing? Good to see you, Deborah. Yeah, there's always so much to learn. But that's the thing, I always tell everybody, don't think that you have to learn all the video editing at once. It's the old adage about how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Just one bite at a time. Say, I would like to learn the basics. I want to learn how to bring my footage in. I want to learn how to cut the footage. I want to learn how to create, put it together so that it's assembled. Maybe I'll learn how to do some transitions like dissolve from one to another. Maybe I'll learn some basics like how to do picture-in-picture, so I can have one screen that's inside of another if I want to react to something. My big things, I think that if I had to make a list of what people should learn, how to do cuts, the different types of cuts there are, how to color grade, how to make sure that you can get the color of your footage looking right. This is the editing stuff. I would say how to learn to do simple things like dissolve transitions. I would say learn how to crop and zoom. Crop and zoom is probably something I use more than anything else. Just the ability to crop things in, zoom things in, move around the screen, create camera motion where none exists. That's what crop and zoom and pan and zoom can do. If you have a shot that's starting on a little bit outwards, you can make it look like the camera's moving around a bit in that shot, even if you had it mounted on a tripod, using pan and zoom and crop and zoom afterwards in the edit. So simple tricks like that make it really, really easy to to learn the other things that come along later, the fancier stuff. And almost everything I do is built on those basic things, you know, real basic, stacking basic things together, right? Like great chefs, they aren't using all, it's not about having, you know, fancy ingredients. A lot of times it's just learning the right way to mix things together, how to, you know, handle things with care and think it through. And learning how ingredients, you know, work together and enhance flavor. You know, editing is not much different. It's really about learning, like, how do I get this shot? Everything starts with the setup. Too many people are grabbing a crappy camera with bad lighting, horrible audio, filming, and then going into the edit and going, how do I fix this? It's like, you know, it's like going to the supermarket and buying rotted meat and going, how do I make a great dinner? Well, you won't, because you're working with crap. You got to start with something good. And that's why I was showing you that new thing I was working on, that new how to fly like Superman, because I shot that all with my phone, right? And I edited it all in Filmora 10. So if I can do that, that means you can do that. But you have to think about all the things that go into it and learn the basics and learn how to bring them all together to incorporate them in a way that all of it makes sense. The real goal here is if anything I do really hits the mark, my overall strategy is I want everyone who watches my content or comes to these live streams, asks questions, learns things, starts seeing different things that are going on, better understand the software, better understands how video editing works, but really start thinking about how to take something and apply it to something else. I don't want people watching my videos and going, oh, Daniel showed me how to fly like Superman. I'm going to go make myself fly like Superman. What I want you to do is go, oh, Daniel showed me how to fly like Superman, and I learned some tricks in there that I can use on something else I'm doing. Because most people out there are, you know, like, what are you going to do? I'm not going to make flying Superman content that will get me anywhere. I'm just doing tutorials. So for my purposes, showing people how to use editing techniques in simple software is my thing. So it fits my value proposition. But you might learn one of the techniques in there and apply it differently. And that will make whatever you do and the kind of content you work on stand out and be a little cooler and be a little more high-end stuff. A lot of times people look at me and go, what are you using to, they'll look at my tutorials and go, well, what did you use to edit it? I know you're talking about Filmora, but what did you use to actually edit it? And I went, Filmora. Whatever video editing software I'm talking about in my tutorials is the video editing software I use to make that tutorial. So if I'm talking about Movavi, I used Movavi. If I'm talking about Filmora 9, I used Filmora 9. If I'm talking about Filmora 10, I used Filmora 10. If I'm talking about Filmora Pro, I used Filmora Pro, because I think that keeps me honest. It makes me stay true to the thing where I'm saying, hey, I'm teaching you how to use the software. Let me make sure that I'm using it to make this tutorial, or else, you know, kind of makes me like a charlatan, right? Feels like I'm not being truthful. Charming Guru, yes, I finally started to naturally need layers. I'm going back to watch some of them. Tutorials. Yeah, those layers. Yeah, right. And exactly. I love the way you just said that, Charming Guru, was you started to naturally need layers. That's what should happen. Most people start with like a single piece of footage, right? They'll bring a single piece of footage in and they'll say, that's all I really needed was, I didn't need 9 layers and effects. I just had this one piece of footage that might have been of me. I filmed it, whatever the thing was. And the first thing I needed to learn was how to find those spots, learn how to use the cut feature, cut the footage, go to another spot, get rid of stuff that you don't need, cut those sections out. You know, simple things that I get all the time. People get all confused. They're trying to do high-end edits and they don't know things like, even using Filmora, like what the auto ripple does. This little green chain link with the line through it, that's the auto ripple. It's off. This little highlighted piece of footage here, if I delete that, I'm hitting delete on my keyboard, it just removes the piece of footage. Let me put it back in. Now, if I turn the auto ripple on, let me go do this. Hold on one second. This is the auto ripple right up here. Now, if I turn that auto ripple on, so now it looks like a chain link, and that same piece of footage, if I delete it, of course, it's not going to do it right now because I only have one piece. Oh, this is why I can't. Watch this one, guys. Let me teach you something. Let me get rid of this first. Let me show you something. If I highlight that and the auto ripple is on and I hit delete, these two get pulled together. Did you see that? If I had done the same thing with the auto ripple off and deleted it, it doesn't pull them together. But here's a really common mistake, and you just saw me make it. I immediately went and scrolled down, right? Let me see. I can use this one. Let me see. Do I have an audio? Let me get an audio track. So if you have audio under here, okay, now you've got all of this stuff put together. Right now, if I do some slices, if I slice this stuff up and I go, now it's all sliced up. This is my entire project. Now, if I have the auto ripple on, someone else, I've gotten this question before too. They go to the centerpiece and they go, I'm going to delete that. Wait a minute, isn't that supposed to close back up? You said if the auto ripple is on, this should close back up. What they don't realize is below it, I have an audio track. And it doesn't just close up that track, it closes up the entire project and brings it together. And basically, the fact that there's audio here that it can't close up, this is as close as it can bring everything to the left before it hits another thing in every track. This audio track is stopping me from deleting, from bringing these upper pieces together in the auto ripple. Now, if I didn't have this section of audio underneath and that was gone, right? Now I go up to this upper one, and again, the auto ripple is on, and I go to delete it, watch what happens. Boom. Now it brings it all together because there wasn't anything down in this audio track stopping the auto ripple from coming back to pushing those tracks together. All right. Does that make sense? Let me do this one another way too. Now they've changed this a few times, but I think it still works. If you want it to auto ripple and not lose time alignment, you can, if you don't care, if you say, well, I want this to come over, I don't care about it. That's just a music track underneath playing through. It doesn't need, I don't need it to be trimmed. Then what you can do is lock the track underneath. And if this still works, I should be able to, see what I did? So I locked that lower track underneath. And then when I remove that piece right here in the center, with the auto ripple on, because it said, I've locked this track, which means ignore this track. Now only deal with the tracks that aren't locked. Delete it. Now it pulls those two together. And that's just a real simple way that auto ripple works. And a lot of people I've talked to don't know that. They haven't learned that basic functionality of how to lock certain things and have things come together or have things not move or move, because sometimes you want to remove something in your project and bring something down in, and they go, well, I don't understand. I tried to bring something down in and it overlaid and it ruined things because they had the auto ripple set wrong. Right. And that is one of the things that those basic things, when people say to me, like, I want to teach me how to fly like Superman. I'm like, you haven't mastered cuts and you haven't mastered transitions. Start there first, because whatever tutorial I'm going to give you, like some of them are for beginners and then some of them are more advanced. So start with the beginner stuff. I have a large community and a large group of people that I talk to. Some are newer, some are intermediate, some are a little more advanced, but most of the real advanced people, they don't need my help. But there's different levels of things going on in there. So I try to reach all people. Some videos are made for beginners and some are made for more advanced users. So I get yelled at sometimes, or if I make a simpler one, someone says, I already knew how to do that. Well, this tutorial wasn't necessarily for you. It was for people who are just starting out. And if I do something too advanced, I get yelled at too, or people will go, you're too fast. I didn't understand. I didn't know how to do any of that. It's because this wasn't meant for you. It was meant for people who already have a lot of those basics in pocket, and they can go, yep, know how to do. I know exactly what he's talking about when he says chroma key, when he says, use the auto ripple. So learning those things really important, because things like auto ripple aren't just unique to Filmora. They exist in a lot of video editing software. So understanding how an auto ripple works is really, really important. Let me give you another example of this auto ripple, just to show how this simple feature can do so much. Watch this. So let's say, let's go back to the media file. Now I'm going to go to the sample videos. Let's say I have the auto ripple off. That's the screen in the upper left here of your timeline, right? Turn it off. I grab a piece of footage. I bring it down into my timeline. That's too long. Let me bring a shorter one. Bring it down to the timeline. Put it right there. I want it to go right between there. Oh, it eliminated the first half of that track. Did you see what just happened? See how long this track is right here? See, it goes all the way across from here to here. I put my playhead there. I want to bring another piece of footage in right here and stick it in between. Wait a minute, it crushed it, eliminated part of that. That's because the auto ripple is turned off, okay? Now, if I turn the auto ripple on and I grab a piece of footage and I bring it down, that same piece of footage, and stick it right here, you can already see it doing it. See it? It's pushing that footage off to the right. So now I haven't lost anything. The auto ripple also works when you're inserting something so that it knows, hey, make the adjustment and ripple or move everything out of the way. When you're deleting something, the auto ripple will ripple everything back closer together. When you're inserting something, the auto ripple will push it off to the right. There's another way to do that I've shown before. Like if you have your playhead right here, your track selected, you can actually, in the upper left, right click on the footage and see it says insert right here. Click that, boom, drops it right in. Now it's inserted. You didn't have to do anything more. Wherever the playhead is, whatever you click, as long as, you can just put insert. And I believe it'll do that even if the auto ripple is off. That's one of those, I just want to get this inserted. Let me see, I'm going to go here. Auto ripple is now off. Yeah, and it'll insert it no matter what, I believe. So there's this little trick. Learning the software, learning the basics is really the key to doing the higher tier stuff that we're talking about, because all of it will start to make sense when you understand the basics. It's like learning to drive a car or learning to ride a bike. Get that stuff down so that you've got it, you've got it all figured, all the basics in pocket. Then the advanced stuff will be like, oh, come to find out, a lot of this is just moving things together that I already know, using a certain cut with a certain simple dissolve transition. When I start compiling these different things together, I come up with a whole new thing, a whole new effect, just by putting simpler ones together. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Sometimes we have to adjust. I think that's a good life lesson. Sometimes we do have to adjust, Jayton? I'll get all the names wrong. How can we make an effective marketing video for a product, and what are the main elements for the marketing video? I love questions like this. There's no good answer, Ibrahim. What's the right answer? How many marketing videos have you seen in your life? Are they all identical? So what you're doing is you're trying to jump ahead of your knowledge base. Learn the basics. Go study some marketing videos. What I couldn't answer a question like this in a live stream, not effectively, because, let's talk about it. What are the main, there's simple things you already know. What's the main marketing element in a marketing campaign? The product. So learn how to do product shots. Do you know how to use a gimbal? Do you know how to use a camera slide? Do you know how to use, how you're shooting that? Do you know how to light your product? But but is it, how many different ways have we seen products put out there? There are endless questions here. So you're asking a question that doesn't have one right answer. Not only does it not have one good right answer, it doesn't have 1,000 good right answers. It has millions. So what you want to start with is learning how to edit. And once you learn how to edit, you can say, now it's your idea. This is why marketing companies make tons of money, because companies come to them and say, well, I want to look different than what I've seen. So I need you to think up something that will make my stuff look different than what everybody else is doing. And that's where great videographers and marketers come up with ideas and go, I have an idea. I'm going to do this, right? We're going to do a commercial for the new Big Mac or the new Whopper or whatever new burger, right? And we're going to have all the pieces of like the bun and the hamburger and the cheese come flying through space together and squash together and land all assembled. But that takes skill, that takes knowledge, that takes understanding how to set up your shot, build your shot. And it also takes the ability to understand what you want to see, what you see in your head, and having it happen in front of you when you film and when you edit. So ask bigger questions. Start with the basics. When you understand the basics, then start thinking about ideas and how you can implement the basics. That's how you'll get what you want for a final result. Repetitive strain injury, my friend Deborah, $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for explaining the auto ripple. I will be auto rippling from now on. Yeah, Deborah, it's one of those simple functions that really works great if you know how to use it. And just remember, there's two sides to it. There's adding stuff to your timeline and there's subtracting things from your timeline. In its simplest form, let's say you had a bunch of stuff that you wanted. Let me give you one more obvious example here, okay? And I appreciate the super chat. That means a lot. If you had, let me do it this way. I want to get rid of all this. Let's say all of this stuff here. I'm going to unlock this track. And let me just get rid of all of this here for a second. Let me stretch this out. Let's say this was 3 different pieces of audio or footage and audio. So you had filmed, and let's say you recorded your audio to a separate source, right? And here it is. they're on different tracks. There's this first segment, and here's maybe it's you talking into a microphone, and that's the audio that goes with it. Here's the second one, and that's clipped. This is how auto ripple works in general, okay? So up in the left, if you can see, I have auto ripple off. I want to turn it on. Maybe this was one continuous piece of footage, and you went, okay, I'm going to go here. This section, I don't like this part. I made a mistake, so I'm going to split the footage there and the audio there. These are both split now. You get past that point and go, this is right where I want to start talking again. Let me split it again. Now I have this middle section, that I need to get rid of. I need to get rid of the video and the audio, and I want it just to do this quick edit where it skips that whole section. Well, then you just highlight both of them, hit delete on your keypad, boom, and it moves all of that out and moves the other sections back together. So that's where the auto ripple is great, is it just grabs stuff. If you're doing quick edits and you're like, all right, I filmed continuously and I talked and I talked and I talked and I just want to get the important parts and move them together, you can go in and slice it up and grab two and keep hitting that auto. Even if it was all in one track, video and audio was all recorded into one track, every time you slice that one track and hit delete for the section you don't want anymore, it'll close the gap. It just gets a little trickier when you get into a lot of layers and you have to understand that another track can stop one of your tracks from closing together. And the goal of it is it keeps everything synchronized, right? Because if it only moved one track and didn't move the audio underneath it, then you would be talking and your audio would be out of sync. So that's really what auto ripple does for us, is it holds everything in sync. And when you pull something out of your project, it pushes the whole project together. So that thing is removed, but it lets everything be continuous, so there's not a space. Sometimes you want a space because you're going to do something different. That's when you usually leave the auto ripple off. Let's see, Daniel, how to fix slow rendering on my video in Filmora. I already covered that. Watch the replay, and I talked about that earlier. Can you tell me how to make the sky glow? No. I can tell you how to, the sky glow? Like what? I'm confused. How does the sky glow? I did do a video. Go to my channel. There's one on how to replace the sky. I actually took the sky and let me see. Hold on one second. I might be able to find this for you. Possibly. You never know. Give me 1 second. Let me show you something really quickly. Let me pull this over here. Sometimes I forget where I put things. Replace the sky. I might have it. I might be able to pull this up. I can't remember which one I did it. Remove the sky. There we go. Okay, I found it. I can't. The audio won't come up, but you'll be able to see this. So here is. Let me get you out of here. The sky glow. If you want to do sky elements, this is a video I did called Remove the Sky. It was in Filmora 9. It's on my channel. And what I did was I took an element like this that was just the normal sky, and I removed it from that video section, and then I replaced it with fireworks. And it was a piece of video. And what it came down to, there was a trick where I used a different piece of software to mask out the sky and basically make that transparent and come back in. So watch that video. It might give you what you need. The glowing effect I've been asking, people keep asking about glowing. Filmora has no inherent glow features like Photoshop or like Adobe After Effects. So it might not be the right software for what you're trying to do. If you need to make things glow, you might want to look at a different software. Can we talk about the different blending modes? I did on the last stream. Watch the very last stream. We'll get that chaptered. I talked about the blending modes and how they work. So definitely the last live stream I just did a little while ago. M50 is better than what? I have an M50. The Z71 is good. So that's the question you're asking, M50 versus the Z71. Z71 has better specs, is better in low light. But is a fixed lens, I believe, fixed lens. So you only get the one lens option, whereas the M50, good camera, kind of an intro camera. I have one, not great in low light, doesn't have as much functionality on or usable functionality, but you can swap lenses on it and put better glass onto it. They're both very good. I believe, Doug could probably tell me, the M50 has the flip out screen that goes to the side. Sony, for some reason, has been wrestling with this. I use Sony's. These are A6400s that I put in the studio. That is up. That one up there is an A6400. I've got two A6400s in front of me. They work great. They're crisp. And they work great for live streaming too. The M50 is not good for live streaming, even though they Canon made a patch for it. It's just, I have to wrestle with it. But they're both very good cameras. I say use what you like. Yeah, the M50 flips out, but I don't think the Sony Z series. I think it flips up, which isn't bad. I like the rest of the Sonys, but if you put a microphone on top of your camera, now it's like in the middle of the screen and you can't see. So that's one of the things I don't love about Sony. The things I like about Sony is it's good for certain things. It's not a great vlogging camera. If you're putting a mic on top, you have to use a rig to get the mic out of the way. Yeah, that's where was it, Doug? I saw you. There it was. Yeah, it's awesome with the 16 millimeter Sigma f1.4. So this lens right here is also a Sigma 16 millimeter 1.4 lens. Works great on Sony too. That's a great thing about Sigma. They make lenses for both Canon and Sony. They work great. And Doug definitely gets a great look out of his. Using A6100, it's a tad cheaper. Yeah, than no lens. Right, the 6100 is a great one too. Really good for live streaming too. Those are great live streaming camera choice. So yeah, I always say find what fits in your price range. You know, these all have different price points, and when you add glass, some of these have like kit lenses that aren't great. I know the kit lens on the M50 I didn't like. It wasn't clear at all. But the minute I changed the lens to a decent piece of glass, it totally made a difference. That camera, the M50 became so much better just by getting rid of the lens they give you with it, which is sort of just a cheap kit lens. It's just not the greatest. So Mike uses a Logitech C930. I've been using it for 2 years and it's doing well. Looks good in streams and video. Yeah, Logitechs aren't. I have a 930E as well. If you can get the lighting right, they can be really good. Sometimes the lighting gets a little funky. I was using them right up until the point I started using the Sony cameras, and it worked pretty well. Depending on the situation, you do have to hit them with. They like a lot of light. They don't do real well in low light, but they like a lot. If you can get a good amount of light on you, they look great. Can I edit 1080p video with 18 gigabytes of RAM? You can, but it's the same thing we were talking about before, was if you start putting a lot of tracks and a lot of effects on there, you're going to watch it slow down. I personally think I won't edit HD at all with less than 16, even 1080 or 720. I won't, if I don't have 16 gigabytes of RAM, I find that I'm always struggling. And when I go to 4K at all, no less than 32, I run 64. So you could do it. It's just how much. It's one thing that people don't understand is the reason a lot of times that your video editing software slows down is it's trying to read the codec and the encoding. So if you're editing in H.264, that's a compression rate. That's a codec they put on there. It's compressed it. And what's happening is like Filmora has to read through the compression to understand the footage. So if you were filming in RAW, which is higher, which is bigger video files, but they're uncompressed, it doesn't have to read through the compression, it'll run smoother. So it's one of those things you got to learn more than just putting software in your computer and stuffing, video files and audio files and going, let's see what happens. You'll learn that different footage and run different ways, and the different system configurations can operate differently. I'll tell you this, if anyone out there is using Filmora and having problems, if you have, let's say you've got a decent CPU, let's say you get a half decent graphics card, maybe like you need like an NVIDIA 1650 or higher. I think you got to do something. On my laptop over here, I think this has the NVIDIA 2060 in it, and it gets by. It's certainly not going to do a lot of high-end editing, but it gets by. What you want to do is in Filmora, let me show you this. Hold on a second. You want to go up to make sure that you're all set. First of all, the thing you want to do is make sure that go up into File, scroll down into Preferences, and first of all, make sure under the Performance tab right here, go all the way to the top, make sure you have GPU acceleration turned on completely. All right, and make sure you've got your graphics card selected for it, whichever one it's dealing with. At that particular point, one of mine is running slow because it's a 1030. This isn't even assigned to the right one. So I have to reassign it because I don't usually, sometimes I run it, sometimes I don't. My computer handles pretty quickly without it. But make sure you've got your hardware acceleration turned on for rendering and for the codec. Make sure that when you scroll down, if you're having problems with it lagging out on you, turn on your proxy files, and you can turn on proxy files for what size footage it should create proxies. You can go down to 720 files. Make sure all your proxy files are cleaned and your render files are clean. You'll see the word clean when you close out, so that all the extra stored stuff you don't need to keep can go away. But what that does is if you're running higher resolution files like 4K, proxy files, what Filmora does is it grabs those files and it makes lower resolution versions of them just for the edit. So it's like bookmarks. It says, well, we're going to create lower resolution versions, and you do all your editing and your chopping and your cutting. And what it does is it goes, listen, we know this is lower resolution. It's not going to look as clean in the preview window, but we're going to work with smaller files that don't have all that data. Then when you go to export, it flips back over and inserts the higher resolution files, all those, 1080 and 4K and higher. Well, not higher, but, anything higher than what you've got. Say you had it set for 720, the lowest. It'll insert all the higher resolution files. So now you've got the full high definition final product, but you weren't trying to work with all those high definition files while you were editing. You were using smaller versions of them because you don't need to see, you're just trying to get everything placed and cut together. Really, really simple way. GPU acceleration, make sure that you're using proxy files where you can. Make sure you render your project. Whenever you see that bar show up that says you can render, the green bar up top, do that. Make sure you have all of your software updated. You have the latest version of Filmora, which, let me show you that one. Everyone always asks me that, where people will say, like, I have the latest version of Filmora. I went to help. I scrolled down. I said, check for update. And let's see what it says. Your current version is the latest version. Well, that's only if Filmora has officially cleared the newest version for mass release. Like, they've worked all the bugs out and they've run it long enough that they know they can tell everybody it's there. What you really want to do, though, is go to the Filmora website, filmora.wondershare.net or .com. Sorry, I'm on the .net site. Wondershare.com, which they are virtually identical sites. And where it says try it for free, that's the free trial with the watermark. Download there. Just click that and download it, and it'll download the latest version of whatever the most recent one with bug fixes. And they may not have made it completely available from inside the software, but you'll usually always get the latest version by downloading it from the website and just install it again. Again, it's supposed to not take over overwrite your project files, but I always back them up just in case. But right now, let's see, I'm running, let me just take a quick peek and let's see if they put a new one out. They put a new one out like every week or two. People think like I have the newest version of Filmora 10. It's giving me issues. I'm like, well, they put out like 10 or 12 versions of Filmora 10 so far. Make sure you have the latest. For me, I've got, let's see, the latest version. If I go to help and I scroll down to about, it tells me I have version 10.4.10.1. That's what this tells me right here. 10.4.10.1. Now, is that the latest version? The way I would find out is I would download the latest version, and you can see down in the lower left here, it's downloading that newest file. And what I would do is just install it, and if it's a newer version like 10.4.2, it'll install it, and then I'll have the newest version that has bug fixes, things that might have been working, not working right, or have been wonky. And those are the things, that's why you always want to make sure you're putting in the latest version. So, because if something's a little messed up, they'll quickly put out a new one with a patch and a fix. The boy from IRE. Thank you for the super sticker, my friend. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the donation. I want to take a second, by the way, to talk to you guys, just to remind you that the sponsors we have here today are our good friends at Spreadshop, my favorite, who are really, really great at making all kinds of merch, t-shirts, coffee mugs, backpacks, you name it, stickers, everything. And they now integrate with YouTube, so all of the Spreadshop stuff can be actually pinned. If you look at, a lot of times on my videos or in the chat, you'll see merchandise pinned up there that you can buy. That can all be integrated with YouTube now. So I want to thank our sponsor, Spreadshop, for allowing us to do this kind of content every week and sponsoring it, because they're really fantastic. And if you haven't set up your own Spreadshop, if you're interested in making your own merch and learning about print on demand, it costs nothing. You come up with your designs, they print, they give you a website where you can set up a storefront, you can you can put all of your different things there. You don't have to pay a thing. And all that happens is when you when someone orders something from your shop, they print it, they send it out, and then it goes right out. They deliver it, they cover the postage, and you just set the price that you want to make on top of that. And what happens there is you just make the profit. So they do all the heavy lifting. You just come up with the designs. If you check out my Spreadshop right now, this is my shop where you can see this is my Spreadshop. It cost me nothing. I built the designs. And any one of these, if someone wants to order any of the merch that I have, boom, you can go right down. You name it, from hoodies to pins to duffel bags to hats to coffee mugs. You can do this yourself, and it's a really easy way to start driving revenue on your channel, because you can set up a shop, put a link down in the description of your video or in your comments section, start making money on the side outside of YouTube AdSense. And I also want to thank StreamYard, who's been a co-sponsor here. All of these live streams we do, the reason that the streams are so smooth and I can do things like share my screen and go, let's take a look at my new Spreadshop and designs, is because I live stream using StreamYard, which is the simplest way for anyone to live stream. And it's absolutely free to sign up, and you get up to 20 hours of live streams a month. You can live stream, which is fantastic. And you can get these high quality live streams just like me. They have a pro version that gives you higher resolution and opens up some ability to do more customization. But I have links to both Spreadshop and StreamYard down below. Please check them up, because they cost you nothing. And there's a lot that can help you as a creator along your path to make more money, create better content, do live streaming, have merch, sell merch, all of the above. All right. So thank you to our sponsors for being here for this kind of content. Boy from Iowa, another super sticker at $1.49. I appreciate that. I hope I'm not missing any questions here. Sometimes super stickers and questions go together. I'll make sure let me see if there's a question you had in here. Do you have any tips for iMovie? I don't. I've been thinking about doing some iMovie content. I appreciate the super sticker, Boy from Iowa. You know who you should check out is Brian G. Johnson has some good iMovie stuff, and Shelly Saves the Day is also doing a bunch of iMovie content. She's very good. So Brian G. Johnson, most of you guys out there know Brian. He's one of my favorite instructors. Most people know him for helping people grow their channels. But all his earlier stuff, he started by doing iMovie tutorials, and he's got a ton of them, real good tips for using iMovie. And Shelly Saves the Day. Those two, go with them. But I'm thinking about doing some more mobile stuff on this channel. Maybe I'll bring Dean Imman in, because he's really good at mobile. And maybe we'll do some mobile editing here. I personally use Video Leap, but like I said, I got a Mac Mini coming, so I might be doing some more. I might be playing with Final Cut Pro, maybe play around with iMovie, a little more Apple-related content. But I'll take that. I'll take that suggestion under advisement. In the meantime, Brian G. Johnson, Shelly Saves a Day. They'll definitely hook you up. Let's see. The other question you asked was, do you have any tips for, when you drop super sticker, I pay attention usually. Do you have any tips for beginners for using Filmora 10? I know you have videos on it, but I think some have been made. Yeah, I have a video on it that covers it. My whole channel covers the different Filmora line. And one thing you want to know about this, the Boy from Iowa, is that all of the different versions, like Filmora 8, Filmora 9, Filmora 10, once they jump to 9, they change the functionality a bit. 9 and 10 are virtually identical, except there's more features in 10. So any of the videos you see on my channel pretty much apply. If it says Filmora 9, all those features are available in 10, so you can learn all that same stuff, and you'll just notice, oh, Filmora 10, I get motion tracking and I get keyframing on top of it. So start with any one of those ones on my channel, and they'll walk you through. And we'll be doing these every single week, where I'm kind of pulling up the software, answering questions, where we can get into it deeper. So I appreciate the super sticker, my friend. East Coast Sluts, thank you for the $10 super chat. What is the best software to use for thumbnails? Would you consider doing a new thumbnail tutorial? Yeah, I use currently Affinity Photo, and I think the last time I checked, they were on sale. Affinity is basically Photoshop without the heavy price tag. And I'm quickly looking. They're usually about $50 to buy the software. And I'm looking right now, and it looks like it's still on sale for half price, 50% off. You can buy Affinity Photo for $24.90 lifetime license. When I tell you Affinity Photo is killer, it's my favorite thumbnail. It's some software for making thumbnails. It's as good as Photoshop, and it also allows you to integrate with Affinity Illustrator and Affinity, the other one is, I think, it's called Publisher. I have all three of them. And they're fantastic. I think I bought all three because they're all down to 25 bucks a piece. I bought the whole package for 75 bucks. Adobe charges you all kinds of money for Illustrator and Photoshop, and it's every year you're paying again in subscription fees. Affinity, AFFINITY, Affinity. Let me grab the link and I'll put it into the chat so you guys can check it out. Great software. It's the only photo editing software you'll ever need to buy. Buy it once. I promise you, they upgrade it all the time. Your license applies to the new upgrades. Super powerful. You can do great font. I mean, you can twist and manipulate all kinds of things. And the real question was, you asked me if I'll ever do a thumbnail tutorial. I will. I have one planned in my head, and I'll probably do some live streaming ones too, where I walk people through it so they can kind of ask me questions and say, what if you do this and what if you do that? Do you have any favorite screen recording software? Yeah, you know what my favorite one is? The built-in screen recorder right inside of Filmora is still my favorite. If you go into Filmora, okay, and right up here, like if you're in the main project area, this is where you're bringing in all of your different assets, your video clips, your images, your music. That's your import window, right? But to the right of it, it says record. If you click on record PC screen, give me a second here. It might pop on my other screen because I got two screen running. Yeah, let me run it over here. So here it is. It'll minimize Filmora, and it opens up the screen recorder, where you can set the resolution 1920 by 1080. You can decide which speaker source, if you want to record a speaker source, or turn it off. You can assign which microphone source you'd like to record, or turn it off. Or you can go into the settings and then you can decide, what frame rate. Let's do 60 frames per second, the best quality, blah, 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 blah. You can decide how long you want it to time for. You can click things like, I want to show the mouse clicks in the recording, click that button, and I want the mouse clicks to be yellow with a circle red. I want to play the mouse sound click when I click. And the other thing a lot of times people miss is this part right here. How do you stop it once it gets going? F10 will pause it and resume it, and then F9 will start and stop it completely. And you can change this. You can assign a different key. That's my favorite. That's my favorite screen recorder, because you can also click record the camera stream right down here at the bottom, and that will allow you to do like a React video where you can capture the screen and you can put in the lower corner your webcam, and you can sit there and you can interact with whatever you're screen capturing. It's what I use to do all my tutorials. It works great. It is only 1080, but 1080 usually gets the job done pretty nicely, and it's pretty crisp. It does a nice job, super simple, runs smoothly. My favorite by far. And it's free. It comes right inside of Filmora. So if you have Filmora, you've already got a great screen recorder. And the minute it's done recording, it puts that final recording right inside of Filmora. So you're in Filmora. It's right there ready to edit. I love it. It just makes life so simple, saves it. Really great. Let's see. We're at 10:22. I went a little long. Guys, thank you very much for hanging out today. I'm trying to keep these short so that we can do these every week and I don't overwhelm people. If you have any questions I didn't get to today, feel free to drop them in the comments section down below. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you to all of our moderators like Doug Hughes and Iggy, Tish from the Artist Haven, my girl Meg, everybody for coming in here and make sure that the chat room stays nice and smooth and helping out people in the chat. I hope you guys have a fantastic Father's Day, and I will see you guys all next week. Peace.